today. We're going to talk about some cloud technology. But last month, we Edafio Technology, who I'll introduce a little more formally in just a second, covered cybersecurity beautifully. I encourage everybody to go on YouTube/CEO Forums, youtube.com CEO Forums, and find that. And some of the things that Jeremy and Keith shared with us was to be proactive, not reactive. You want action versus reaction. Disable micros, go slow in opening emails. There is cybersecurity insurance, and Bo Biddle and his firm seems to have the best. The people who created that insurance category, Bo Biddle, and password management. There's some options for you there if you're looking for one. And then obviously ransomware. The fact that ransomware in 2019 averaged $11,000 per ransom to get your data back, and in 2020 that's gone to 100,000. Those are some of the things we learned. And 60% of all small businesses fail if they get a serious cybersecurity attack within the first 6 months of their cybersecurity attack. So be proactive there, please. And we had 2 members that have been hacked, I guess. One of them had to pay ransomware a little over $1,000. The other one had a spear phishing, and those examples are covered in that video description. And then you have 2 tools that Edafio has given us, been kind enough to put forth that are very valuable: the Cybersecurity Readiness Survey, and then the Cloud Readiness Assessment that informs you if it's time for you to go to the cloud more aggressively. They will talk about that, I'm sure, more. Now, for the more formal introduction of the team, Edafio, if you will, first I want to thank Melissa Swan, the leader of marketing for Edafio, and just like all the other people, a great professional and a yogi. So we bow to the light in you, Melissa. We have 2 of Edafio's lead technical people ready to inform you about cloud technology for this presentation. Keith Woodruff, he's the CTO of Edafio. He joined Edafio 10 years ago as president and CEO, and recently transitioned to his current role as Chief Technology Officer and NWA Managing Partner. Anytime you have a succession plan the way they did it, you know it's a great company, because that's hard to do, and it's very thoughtful, well laid out. Before Edafio, Keith spent 13 years at IBM as a systems engineer and application development leader, and 15 years at Axiom in solution delivery and leadership roles. Secondly, we have Mr. Will Smothers, the team leader of Edafio's cloud computing services. Smothers is responsible for driving product strategy, engineering, and operations of Edafio's cloud services. His primary focus is on rapidly deploying or developing and growing its best enterprise-focused cloud platform and delivering the most secure, reliable, cost-effective, high-performance infrastructure for running mission-critical workloads. Before joining Edafio, Smothers was a technical leader at enterprise-level corporations, including the U.S. Army, Axiom Corporation, and Nablus Construction. We're excited to turn the workshop over to Keith and Will to provide an introduction to cloud basics and how it can transform your business. In the end, we will have some time for questions, and Will's going to ask you for some inquiry along the way and set that up for you. If you are interested in carrying the conversation further, please reach out to Keith or Will. This is not an insignificant offer for a free consultation. We encourage you to complete the cloud readiness assessment to determine if moving to the cloud is the best solution for your business. Edafio is the largest Arkansas-based managed service provider, operating one of the most extensive groups of IT engineers and specialists in the region. They help build, support, and protect their clients' businesses through implementing and optimizing intelligent technology solutions, cloud computing, cybersecurity, and healthcare consulting across multiple industries from their offices in Central Arkansas. I think they built a new headquarters there. It's really a nice building, Northwest Arkansas, and then in Northwest Arkansas. Edafio is driven by and owe their success to living their core values, which begin with their commitment to clients' success. And I would add to that, if you Google them, you'll find that they win some awards, those some great awards, great companies win, best business to work for, and at Arkansas Business and other places. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Keith Woodruff.
Great. Yeah, Tim, thanks for that very gracious and complimentary introduction. If you'll just hit the next slide there, you mentioned the client success, integrity, and humility with one team with humility and respect. Those are our core values. We don't have a meeting where we don't talk about these. They are an integral part of what we do. And then going on down to the question slide, our intent with this meeting is to be informative, to help, and give you guys what you want and are interested in around this topic of cloud. So we want you to ask questions. I'd ask you even right now, are there topics or interests or questions that you have before we even get started on this that you want us to address? Because this is intended to be interactive. We want it to be of value, and the way it can be of value is addressing things that are important to you guys. So any topics or questions that even before we get started that you want us to be thinking about as we present and talk about this topic?
Wow. Okay.
Then we'll load up and give you what we got, and as we go along, don't hesitate to ask questions. So
there you go.
Tim, should go to the next slide.
Real quickly, Keith, if you don't mind, you guys, this is Will Smothers. I appreciate y'all giving me time to do this. A couple little real quick housekeeping items. I love questions. 100% love questions. Keith and I were talking about this just the other day, and one of the greatest things I ever learned as a very young man in the military, I was standing in front of a drill instructor who their entire job is to make you feel stupid and tear you down and build you back up. And I said to him, Drill Sergeant, I have a dumb question for you. And his response to me was A, humbling, but B, has stuck with me my entire life. He looked me dead square in the eye, not trying to make me feel stupid, and said, there's no such thing as a dumb question. There's only a dumb answer. If you're wondering it, so are other people. Don't be afraid to ask. It's okay. That has stuck with me my entire career and my entire life. So, please, as Keith pointed out, as we're going through these, if something comes up and you have a question about it, don't hesitate to ask. Don't think, geez, I don't want to ask this because I'm going to look dumb. You're not asking because you're dumb. You're asking because you don't know. And the only way you become intelligent about it is to ask that question. So please take the opportunity to ask the question when it comes to mind. If the background noise gets too loud, I will mute everyone just to help reduce that distraction. And there are a couple ways that you could ask the question that you may have. The first one is to unmute yourself. So if you guys have never used Teams, let me real quickly help you understand how to do that. At the very top of your Teams window is a small black bar, and on the right-hand side, there's a collection of between 4 and 6 icons. One of them should look like a microphone. And with that microphone, there'll probably be a line through it if you're muted. If you're not muted, it'll just look like an open microphone. So if I do mute you all, you will have a line through there, and you can simply click on the microphone to unmute yourself and ask your question. The other way that you can do it is you probably see a little icon that looks like a hand. That hand is, as the name implies, it's to raise your hand. So if you click on that, I'll get a notification that you have a question, and I can unmute you or not unmute you, but call on you to unmute yourself, pardon me. And then the third and final way is to simply type it into the chat message. And the way to do that is there looks like a little icon that looks like an old Peanuts cartoon conversation bubble, right? You can click on that, that'll pull up the chat window, and you can type your question there, and we'll try to answer it that way. So I know a lot of you didn't have questions for us, But I have some questions for you guys that I want you to start thinking about as we're having this discussion. Okay? So the first one is, how many of you, and you can just use the raise your hand icon to raise your hand, how many of you, whether it's at work or in your personal life, use some form of cloud-based service? I'll give you guys a second to find that hand button and raise it. All right, getting a few answers there. Okay. All right. Go ahead and unclear those now. Then you just click on it again to unclear it. How many of you use Microsoft or Office 365 in your day-to-day business? Okay. Good. Excellent. All right. How many of those of you who have 365 use Teams like we're using today? Whether that's for chat or to manage projects or whatever the case may be. Okay, a couple of them. Good, good, good. How many of you have used OneDrive to store your files in? Okay, and the last question I have for you is, as we're going through this presentation, pardon me, I want you guys to think about what questions you have about cloud. Okay, again, there's no such thing as a stupid question. Okay, all right, go ahead and clear your hands if you will. That way I can tell if somebody has a question. All right, looks like maybe Tommy might have a question. Go ahead, Tommy, if you want to unmute yourself and ask away.
I don't have a question. I forgot to unraise my hand.
Gotcha. Okay, great. Not a problem. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on. So, today what we really, there we go. Let me come back. What we really want to do is we want to talk about what is cloud, right? What is it? We want to talk about why should you as a company or a leader of your company be thinking about cloud versus traditional IT? How do you secure cloud, right? Because there seems to be a lot of questions around that, and is it secure, and what happens? And so we're going to look a little bit at that. We're going to look at the financial implications for you guys, right? So we're going to look at how traditionally IT has been funded, and we're going to talk about the current model that most folks are starting to move to. And then the final one is, throughout this discussion, if you don't have any other chance to ask a question, at the very end, we're going to allow you to ask questions again. You'll notice that questions are a running theme through this entire presentation, right? I want this to be as organic as possible. I'm not going to give you guys death by PowerPoint. I think I have a total of 10 slides altogether, and most of them have no words on them. So the whole point of it is I want this to be more of an organic conversation around what's cloud and how you guys can use it, okay? All right, so what is cloud, right? Everybody nowadays hears about cloud. Oh, we got to get in the cloud. What is the cloud? Oh, the cloud's great. But what is cloud? That's the question, right? So I want you guys to think about that. The cloud can refer to any number of different internet-based computing platforms and services, okay? And not just for business. Cloud gets thrown around for all kinds of things. So let me give you guys some examples to help you understand what is cloud. If any of you have a smartphone, whether that be Apple or Android, and you use the Apple or Google App Store, those are powered by the cloud, okay? If you save your images to iCloud or Shutterfly or Bitbucket, those are all cloud-based services. Those are file storage services. Here's the ones that I always love to point out to folks because they don't necessarily think about it. If any of you use Peloton, or you're starting to use the new Apple Fitness Plus for your fitness routines, hey, guess what? Both of those are cloud-based services. And then the last one, the last example I'll give you is one that I think everybody on this conversation, everybody in modern world today is using. And that's streaming services like Disney Plus and Hulu and Netflix, right? Those are all backed by cloud-based providers, right? So these are really common examples, right, that we see every day in our lives. Now, we don't necessarily see these in business every day, but the point behind these examples is to get you guys thinking about, oh, geez, cloud is everywhere, right? So cloud is everywhere. So we use it in our personal lives because it allows us to be mobile, because we can access it on our mobile devices from wherever we are over the cellular network. And it allows us to be, in some cases, more productive, right? Because we're not tethered to a PC. We're not having to sit in an office. We're not having to be in a building to do whatever it is we may be doing, right? So kind of one of the questions to think about is, why should your business be any different than your personal life? Why should, just because it's business, you be tethered to a desktop computer or a laptop computer in a physical location, right? So be thinking about that. So, all these examples that I gave you, in reality, there's really only a handful of true cloud services, and we're going to look at those. The three main types of cloud services that are out there is infrastructure as a service, or IaaS, platform as a service, or PaaS, and software as a service, or SaaS, SaaS. Okay. The infographic you're seeing on your screen will help you understand, or hopefully will help you understand, what you as a business are responsible for and what the provider is responsible for on each of these different services. The far left, obviously, is traditional on-premises. You own everything from soup to nuts. You provide the power, the high vac, the raised floor, the racks, the servers, the network, the software, the operating system, the support, so on and so forth. So as you can see, as you move further down that stack to the right, those responsibilities change dramatically pretty quickly. Sometimes it's a hard concept for folks to grasp. So one of my favorite infographics is at the top right, left-hand corner, of this slide. And that's thinking about it as pizza as a service, right? So when you're craving pizza, how many of you do the far left? You're going to make it at home, right? You're going to provide your cheese, your toppings, your dough, your table, your chairs, your drinks, so on and so forth, right? Sure, every now and again it's fun and fine to do, and it's a lot of fun if you have small kids to get them involved in making it, but most of us don't really do that. The next one is kind of, if you guys have a Murphy's pizza, right? Take and bake. You order ahead, you get it. All you got to do is bring it home and stick it in the oven. A lot less mess, not as much cleanup, a lot more enjoyment, right? The platform as a service is more like you pick up the phone and you call Domino's or Pizza Hut or whoever and have them deliver it, Papa John's, and have them deliver it to your house. You still have some things you're responsible for, right? You still got to have that table. You got to have drinks to have. You got to do a little cleanup in the back end. But for the most part, most of your stuff is done. And then the last one is really where everybody wants to go, right? That's when you go and you go to U.S. Pizza Company or you go to Gusano's or someplace of that nature, and they take care of everything. And all you got to do is pay the check, right? You can make as big a mess as you want to make. You can order whatever you want on the menu. You just have to pay for it, right? So that's really fits directly into the infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. So kind of some key differentiators. Infrastructure as a service, it's highly scalable, and it's uses automated computer resources, right? So think of it as being elastic. It can scale out, it can scale up very quickly. It can also scale down very quickly, and scale in. Some examples of an infrastructure as a service, and these are names you've probably heard. Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Services, Google Compute Engine, okay? Those are all infrastructure as a service, right? if any of you currently in-house are running virtual servers, infrastructure as a service is basically virtual machines in the cloud. The big difference is you don't have to deal with the hardware. You don't have to deal with the infrastructure, so on and so forth. So where in your environment, you may have 1 or 2 virtual servers that are running 10 guests. In infrastructure as a service, you can still run those 10 guests, but they run over thousands of servers. So they have a lot more reliability and a lot more recoverability, as well as being able to scale out, scale up as you need it. Whereas on your on-prem, you may be feeling some constraints, and if you need to add more capacity, you've got to go buy a new hardware. You've got to put it in place. You've got to stand up the operating system. You've got to add it to the virtual cluster. You've then got to load balance all the. In infrastructure as a service, you don't deal with any of that, right? You just say, hey, I need a new server, and it spins it up. Okay. Platform as a service provides a platform specifically for software creation, okay? So think of this as they provide everything but the application and the database. I don't think there's a lot of folks on this call who are really going to leverage platform as a service, but it is one of the major as a services out there, so you guys need to know what it is. Some examples of these, and I don't expect anybody to know what these are. I've been doing this a long time, and I have only come across these a couple of times, and normally with software developers. So some of the examples is AWS's Elastic Beanstalk. Yeah, sounds great. Okay, are we going to cook it? What's the deal? Heroku, and then OpenShift, right? Those are all examples of platform as a service. But the holy grail, the golden goose of as a service is software as a service. Okay, software as a service delivers the entire application, and it's managed by a third-party vendor, and they deliver it directly to the user. Most SaaS applications run directly through a web browser. They may have a more traditional desktop client as well, but for the most part, you can access them just directly through a web browser. You don't need any special downloads or installations. So some examples of this: Microsoft and Office 365, and there is a difference between the two, and we can talk about that. Google Workspace used to be known as G Suite, Dropbox, Salesforce. Those are all types of software as a service. Okay. So why would I consider cloud over traditional IT, right? So we kind of talked a little bit about your on-prem when we're talking about a virtual infrastructure. You know, basically everything you have, you're responsible for. You're responsible, it's got to be connected to the network. That network's got to be able to talk out to the internet. You've got to secure that with a firewall. You've got to make sure the hardware is locked down and secured. You may need to make sure that you have IT personnel or a service provider like Edafio who is responsible for managing this for you and making sure that it is constantly patched, that the right people have the right access to the right things, so on and so forth, right? It's not very flexible. It's costly and time consuming to scale up or scale out. We talked about that, right? We need to add another server. Well, we've got to go get a quote for it. We got to get it purchased. We got to get it in. We got to get it racked. We got to make sure it has power, so on and so forth. So it's not real scalable. And it's difficult for for users, your users, to connect to remotely, right? So when all your data is sitting inside of your network, traditionally your customer or your user, has to VPN in to access that data or be on site. There's not a whole lot of remote work that goes on traditionally where we really saw it, where these guys that were the road warriors, right? Your sales guys who are out there who kind of do things on their own, and then they come back into the office or they VPN in at the end of the day and synchronize all their data and bring everything up to date. And in these on-premise, other than sitting in a conference room, there's not a whole lot of collaboration that can happen. It's difficult to work on, let's say, a Word document or a project proposal with multiple team members making changes at the same time, right? It's a lot of, hey, what do you think about this? Well, that's okay. And it's not an organic conversation. It's more of, I'm going to put this out there and I'm going to wait for somebody to respond to me. Okay. Public cloud is a little, well, not a little, public cloud is a lot different than traditional, right? Public cloud, as we talked about, is more elastic, right? It allows you to quickly spin up resources, whether that is, I need another server, or, hey, I need to add more capacity to this server. You can do it very, very quickly. It can be accessed literally from anywhere. Yes, you still need to secure it using usually a virtual firewall, but you can access it from mobile devices. You can access it from on-premises servers. You can access it from workstations, whether they are part of your network or sitting at somebody's house during these times where remote remote work is so prevalent. So they're somewhat of an extension of your network, but not really, right? They're still running in somebody else's cloud. You're not responsible for the cost to spin them up, so on and so forth. And then private cloud. So private cloud is the one that does not get talked about a whole lot, which is unfortunate. Private cloud is kind of the best of both worlds of your on-premises and your public cloud. And what I mean by that is private clouds normally have a large amount of resources in the back end. They have a smaller customer base. They are usually geared for performance, right? We want them to perform really, really, really well. But they give the customer the ability to go in, usually through a web interface, and add resources, spin up new devices, things of that nature really, really, really quickly. And those private clouds are usually an extension of your existing network, right? So either you bring in a private network like an MPLS or a ASC circuit, or you extend your virtual private network from your on-premise location to your cloud. And then that way it acts and moves more like it's part of your company, but it has that elasticity of public cloud, right? And then the final piece of all of this is hybrid. And hybrid is saying, hey, we're going to take little bits and pieces and we're going to put them where they make the most sense, right? So you may put in the public cloud your web servers, because you can spread them across a whole bunch of data centers and make sure that they're available and make sure that they're respond to your customers' requests really quickly. But the database that powers those web servers, you may put in a private cloud because you need that performance from the SQL server that the private cloud can provide. And then there may be pieces like legacy applications that you want to run on-prem because they don't really run well in the cloud, and it would be really expensive to run them in private cloud, or you've already made an investment on the infrastructure to run them on-prem and you don't want to move off of it yet, right? You haven't fully depreciated that investment. So hybrid is really, that is really the stepping stone or the block to get where the ultimate goal is, which is getting you fully cloud-based, right? Now, again, cloud-based can be public cloud, it can be private cloud, it can be a combination of the two. But hybrid is that first step. It's where you stick your pinky toe in the water and decide, hey, is this water the right temperature? Is it too deep for me? And then hopefully you have a swimming instructor like Edafio who can help you navigate how to swim down to that deep end and be comfortable in the deep end, right? Okay. Any questions so far? I haven't seen any hand raised yet, so I'm just want to make sure nobody's got any questions around any of this that we've covered so far. Okay, great. We'll go ahead and move on. Okay. The next question I get all the time is, man, we have a lot of really, really stringent security requirements we have to meet for our industry. Well, guess what? So does the cloud, right? So, most public and private clouds meet regulatory compliances for some of the most strenuous bodies in the world. good example. Azure is been FedRAMP certified. Okay, so for those of you who don't know what FedRAMP certified is, which I don't expect a lot of you do, it is the requirement to be able to run federal government, secure federal government infrastructure in a cloud. Okay, so the same requirements that they would have to run on premises, they have to meet in the cloud. So I want that to sink in for just a second. So basically what I just told you is that public cloud is more secure than you probably have today. And I know everybody's going, that's not. Let it sink in. They have to meet FedRAMP requirements. Additionally, for many industries, they have to meet HIPAA compliance. They have to meet ISO 27001. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's all about standardization and making sure you're doing it the same way, and it's a repeatable process, and so on and so forth. You have to meet PCI, that's bank data, right? So we're talking account numbers, Social Security numbers. We're talking large sums of money, so on and so forth. They have to meet PII, or publicly identifiable information, like Social Security number, name, street addresses, phone numbers. They have to be able to secure that data. And there's numerous other certifications and requirements that they have to meet. So they all can meet these requirements. Here's the key to it. They all operate under a philosophy called shared responsibility. What is shared responsibility? Well, it's exactly as the name implied. They're responsible for some of it, but you as the customer are responsible for the rest of it. So they give you the tools and they say, here you go, you got to go take care of it. So how is this germane or relevant for you guys? What that's saying is that if you're using infrastructure as a service, go back to that infographic, right? They're going to secure the hardware, the physical access to the data center, the network, the access to the network. They're going to secure that stuff. But it's up to you and your team to still secure the operating system, your portion of the network, right? Because you're going to build a virtual network inside of a public cloud. You need to put an edge perimeter up, just like you do if you're in your physical business office, right? You've got to have a firewall. So then on top of that, you need to turn on all the additional security features that they make available to you. Software as a service is no different. They're going to give you all the tools. The problem is they don't know what your requirements for your business are. So the tools are all there, but you've got to go in and turn, as I jokingly like to call them, the nerd knobs. You've got to turn them on. You've got to make sure that you enable the logging, that you lock down with the DLP, or the capability to say, hey, I want to encrypt email. And if I send an encrypted email to someone, I don't want them to print it, and I don't want them to forward it. Or they can forward it, but they can't print it. They can't save it. You know, those type of things. You've got to go in and turn all those on. You've got to go in and say, hey, I need to turn my logging level up and make sure I know everything that happens. And oh, by the way, I need to keep those logs for whatever your compliance requirements are, right? So in the case of PCI, you're talking up to 10 years. You've got to keep your log files so that you can prove who accessed what and when, and did they have the rights to do that. So you've got to utilize those tools to secure the way that your industry needs it. The big plus here is they build in the tools for you, whereas if you're running in a traditional IT infrastructure, you've got to go out and buy a tool set to do that, right? So you've got to go out and buy that piece of software that will actually crawl your data and tag it for your sensitivity tags, and we'll talk about that in a moment.
So just connect both.
So, you know, those type of things you have to do on your own.
It's not frozen though.
Tommy, I'm gonna mute you for just a moment. All right, there we go. So those type of things are there. For those of you who don't know what data tagging is, you probably want to look into it because you probably at some level are required to do it for compliance reasons. And what data tagging is you define specific keywords and specific data types that are either publicly available, or they're PII, or they are for internal use only, and you have to flag that data. And then based on that flag, an action has to be taken. So in the example of PII, no more than these 10 people can see that data. Well, once it's flagged, if you have set up your system, then even if it's saved outside in another location that it's not supposed to be, that data tag will enable the ability to keep people from viewing the data that don't need to view it. And oh, by the way, then you can set up a action tag that says, hey, somebody saved this data outside of this repository and it has PII. So I'm going to move it over to this data store so that it's good and secure. Okay, so all those tools are built into the cloud. I will almost guarantee you none of you guys have those tools on premises today, right? So those are really, really big. The other one that I hear a lot of conversation around is, and it sounds like it's happened to a couple of folks here, is, yeah, I clicked on a link and they got access to my, whatever the cloud service is. The majority here is 365, right? Guess what? It's because they didn't secure down the cloud appropriately. One of the things we recommend, as Jeremy mentioned last month, is multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication in studies has proven 99.99% effective against spear phishing, against phishing in general, against whaling. For those of you who don't know, it's not like gnashing of teeth and whaling. They go specifically after your C-suite, nobody else. So having that MFA, even if you click on a link in a malicious email, they gather your username and password from that link. If they try to log in, they can't do it because it sends a notification or a code to your security device, whether that be your mobile device or an email address or a telephone call. And you have to put that code in to authenticate that, yes, you asked for this. Okay. So it's not, again, it's under that shared responsibility model. By default, it is not turned on. It is up to you to go turn that kind of thing on. So that's a good example of how you secure down your cloud. Okay. So it's secure. Oh yeah, it's really, really secure. And I would venture to say in 90% of all cases, it's more secure than your on-premises infrastructure. You just have to know how to secure it. Folks like Edafio come in as we help you guys do that kind of thing, right? Because it can be challenging and it can be daunting. All right, I think we have a question. What you got?
Yes, sir. So Lane Crowder's on the call, Beaver Water District, and he obviously, to protect our water supply, has a lot of data that he feels like he needs to leave on his servers, I think. And so could we just use as an example, maybe, Lane, if you're still on, maybe just to kind of let him, share what he thinks. And then you're saying that you feel like the public cloud is more safe than the way that someone might have it that's not on the public cloud. That's what I'm hearing, right?
Well, what you're hearing is that's a possibility. In most cases, in a small to medium-sized business, yes. When you're talking large enterprises, maybe not, because the larger enterprises will make those investments to get the tools and put the security in place because they are required to. Smaller folks may not know the regulations behind what they do and don't have to do, or the cost for the tools may be out of their reach, or it may be out of the technical knowledge of their support staff. right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I say the cloud, in many cases for you guys, will probably be more secure than what you have on premise.
Mm-hmm.
So to the point of sensitive data, right? Any security piece that you can put on a file share or a network server that's on your premises, you can do the same thing in a good public cloud, right? Dropbox, not so much. But when we're talking file storage in SharePoint or Azure, absolutely. You still do roles-based authentication. You can trigger alarms that if someone tries to access the data that does not have access to, you are notified. Everything is logged. That log can then be fed into, if you're in Azure, and guys, I'll have to make an apology right now. I am a Microsoft advocate, if you will. So that is the platform that I know the best, and I feel provides for most small and mid businesses the best tool set. So you would feed those log files into something like Azure Sentinel, which is a security as a service that reads these files and correlates multiple log files together to identify a potential breach in progress. So to your point, sure, you've got a file server. Sure, you've got it locked down. Sure, it's writing security logs into the event viewer in Microsoft Word. Is anybody doing anything with that? Is anybody looking at that log file constantly and going, oh, that person shouldn't be trying to log in there? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cloud can do that. Cloud can dump those log files into Sentinel, and Sentinel can go, whoa, hey, look, wait a minute. I see somebody trying to come in from Russia, and at the exact same time, I'm seeing files trying to be accessed by a user who shouldn't have access to them. Hey, guess what? I'm flagging this, and I'm letting somebody know because this is probably a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So does that help answer the question any?
You bet. You bet.
Okay, great. That's a good question. Really good question.
If Lane's on, Lane, do you have anything you want to ask on that? And then I see Alan Gardner also on. Alan's got a kind of a data intensive business, RX Solutions. Alan, how do you handle your data these days?
We have kind of a hybrid environment. We use Microsoft Azure, and then we have some in-house servers as well.
Yeah.
Anything that we need, 99.9% uptime, we use on Azure.
Yeah.
So, Alan, do you guys, because again, I kind of want other folks to hear how you could leverage this as well. Do you guys, in both your Azure and your on-premises, are you guys feeding those logs into something like a Sentinel or a third-party event monitoring service?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we are.
Fantastic. And then are you guys also a Microsoft 365 customer?
We are.
Okay. Are you guys leveraging Azure Information Protection?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not really sure.
Okay.
You guys
All right.
on that.
So let me clear up the gobbledygook for everybody who's on the call who just heard all that and all they heard was blah 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 blah. So what we're talking about is Alan's taking his logs and he's putting them into a log collection solution that does like Azure Sentinel and correlates events and says, oh, this is a problem. Azure Information Protection, right? That's what AIP is. It stands for Azure Information Protection. That's where you can actually tag your data based on definitions. And AIP not only can be used in Azure, it can also be, there's an agent that you can put on your local servers and it can actually enforce those same policies on your local servers. That's the reason I asked that question. So Alan, you and I may want to have a discussion afterwards about some questions to ask your IT guys to see if you're already leveraging log collection service in your Azure, leveraging some Azure, and you have Microsoft 365 as opposed to Office 365. You guys own AIP, so you may want to be asking your guys around some of that security stuff around that. So,
thank you, Will.
Great information.
Yeah, I would say that we see a lot of clients who like this hybrid option. I think there's still sometimes a hesitancy to put your crown jewel data or applications out somewhere where you don't necessarily have a proven record or trust, full trust of putting that data out there in the public or another domain. So that's a fairly good and common approach. I think the message that you're probably hearing Will talk about in today's world is that the shift of getting more comfortable putting data in the cloud is happening over time, and even your most, crown jewel data. So, but I think for each person, each client, that's a decision you have to kind of weigh through and work through. We as a company still keep some of our very private, really highly important data on-prem. So even as an IT company, we've made some decisions about certain data to date, and over time that may change, but just 2 cents on that.
Yeah, and to Keith's point, some other really great examples. If you guys have ever looked at I'm at the age where I'm looking at my Social Security statement every year, right? That's hosted in a FedRAMP certified cloud provider. A number of very large banks, not necessarily the ones that are local, but a number of large nation and international banks keep their data in public clouds. And in reality, they do a hybrid approach where they have some data in the public cloud, some data in a private cloud, and then they surface it through a web interface, and that's to meet some PCI compliance requirements where the two pieces of data can't be housed in the same place, because then you could put them together and get access, right? So some is housed internally, to Keith's point, your crown jewel data, and some is housed in a public facility, and then they're brought together in a web interface. So absolutely, Keith, that's a great call out. Okay, we got another great. Okay, Lane, I'm ready for it.
Well, I just wanted to see if you could hear me this time.
Yes, sir.
We sure can.
Good. I appreciate it, and Will, I do appreciate the information. I guess from our standpoint as a utility provider, there's a difference in how we secure our data and how we secure our operating systems. One of the things I visited with Keith in our last CEO forum was the concern that we have, and what Tim was referring to is we have our operating systems completely air gapped. There is no way that somebody outside of this facility can access, our SCADA systems. However, that being said, because so much is being driven, through the cloud on online access, a lot of our providers, vendors, equipment service techs, they all want to plug in remotely, because it's convenient for them, but they also have more access to their own, software and diagnoses and things. And that is our biggest challenge, much like the information you hear all the time about how unsecure our electric grid is, right, and how easy it is to get into it. So we have both sides of the coin. Obviously the challenge of securing our data on the administrative side of the server that is connected, and then again how we overcome this challenge on the operational side.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. I think you're. Hang on, we're getting some feedback. There we go. I think you're absolutely right. I think your control systems, right? So coming from the construction world, I'm going to relay this to some philosophies and principles in construction, right? So your control systems that run your high vac and your elevators and the electricity in your building and so on and so forth. That's a completely separate system. And you're right, you air gap it, right? So it's the same with utilities, I'm sure. The things that control all your utility stuff, right? The keys to the kingdom, if somebody gets a hold of this, they could take down, an entire substation or whatever the case may be. Absolutely air gap those. Absolutely. And I agree with you, and I agree with your philosophy that nobody gets access to that. I don't care who you are. I mean, just if you want access, if you need to do something to it, you're going to have to come on site. You're going to have to be escorted. We're going to have somebody who we trust go with you to make sure that you don't do anything either intentionally or unintentionally malicious or may cause a disruption in service. Because, you guys, when somebody flicks a light switch, they expect the lights to come on, right? Your administrative side of the house, the generating the bills and things of that nature. Yeah, that may be data that you could look at to move someplace else. But I think you're right. I think your control systems, 100%, you got to keep those air gapped, and that has got to be a very secure environment all the way around. So don't disagree with you on that one.
Okay, thanks, Lane.
Great.
Thank you, Will.
Yeah, good question. Really good question on that one, Lane. Thank you for asking it. Okay, I'm going to lower Lane's hand real quickly, and I'm going to also lower your hand. There we go. Okay. All right, so let's move on. Let's talk about the next one, the one that is important, but being a technical guy is not necessarily my least favorite, but the one most technical people don't want to talk about. But having been a director of IT for an $875 million construction company, it's one that's close to my heart. It's near and dear. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between CapEx and OpEx. Now, most of you folks on this call probably have an MBA, so you probably know way more than I do about this stuff, right? But it never hurts to talk about it and discuss it. So the traditional way of funding IT has been CapEx, right? We sit down at the beginning of the year, right before the fiscal year starts, while we're in our budgeting cycle, and we start saying things like, okay, what do we want to accomplish this year? How long do we think that's going to take? How much money are we going to have to set aside for hardware, software, people resources? And then how long are we going to amortize that over before we start gaining our any type of payback on our investment, right? So, those are the traditional way of doing it. I jokingly always say it's like looking into a cloudy crystal ball when it comes to IT projects, because historically IT projects, because your budgeting cycle is usually only 60 days, 60, 90 days. Planning for a major IT overhaul or implementing a new application or a new service in your organization from an IT perspective, that is months and months and months worth of planning, right? So 60 days, you're kind of just swagging it, right? You're making a scientific wild guess. And some of it's based on intuition, some of it's based on your experience, but inevitably it leads to one of two outcomes. Sometimes there's a happy third, but it either ends up with you, way over budget this thing, right? Because you don't want a shortfall, because you don't want to go back in the middle of the year and go, oh, we didn't do it right. We need us to have some more money. Because then at that point, your board of directors and your CFO are just going to hang you out to dry, right? It's not going to happen. The other outcome is you overestimate and you have this huge surplus of money left. Normally that's pretty good. But if you're in a type of business where it's a use it or lose it, pardon me, what tends to happen is at the end of that year, you have all this money that's left. It's earmarked for a project that's complete because you way overshot it. And so you go out on this IT spending spree because you don't want to go back next year and go, oh, I need less money. Well, it gets you in this terrible, terrible spiraling loop down around your budgeting for IT, and IT ultimately ends up being the biggest black hole in the company. I cannot tell you how many times I had conversations with our CFO around, your department is the most expensive department in the company, period, when we were on a CapEx model. Don't get me wrong, there are definite uses for CapEx, right? Good examples. You're buying a building, right? It's a fixed asset. You know you're going to be in that building for 30 years. You're going to amortize it over that 30 years. Man, CapEx is perfect for that. CapEx is perfect for if you have a fleet of vehicles, right? And you need to upgrade them or change them out. Those are great examples of when you want to use CapEx. Now, let's talk about OpEx. Traditionally, OpEx was not embraced for IT because you can't go buy software and hardware and just pay a monthly fee for it traditionally, right? Traditionally, you had to go out and you had to buy a server or a set of servers and switches and routers. And then you bought software you paid for it one time, perpetual licensing, and then you paid to have support renewed every single year, okay? So you could take that support cost and operationalize it, but the initial output of buying the software and buying the hardware, you could not really operationalize that. Sure, you can amortize it, right, and still spread that cost out, but it still had to come out of your pocket up front. So it was not a really conducive model. Well, then all of the software vendors started shifting to subscriptions. And lo and behold, OpEx became a very viable solution for IT. So if you've started making this shift from your traditional IT to hybrid or cloud approach, OpEx actually makes a huge amount of sense because you know exactly how much you're paying each month for your service. There's no upfront capital for it. You pay it out every single month. You get to immediately do a tax deduction on it every single month. You don't have to wait to amortize it, right? So there are some huge benefits to looking at doing OpEx. And subscription services have really helped do this. It's made it become predictable for IT. You know exactly how much it's going to cost you if you have to add a body or remove a body from your organization. So how much you're either going to spend or save as you either add or terminate people. And it becomes a lot more predictable. It's more of a modern accounting style or accounting way. And it takes your IT department and they're no longer that black hole cost center, right? I mean, I can remember for the first 20 years of my career, the only discussions you ever had around IT is, man, that's a cost center. How can we make it not a cost center? And you had really weird things like, oh, we're going to charge back each department for every computer that they use, and it's going to include the support cost and the software. And so that still didn't offset the capital, right? You still had to do a CapEx up front. Moving to this operational, now you can actually make that shift, right? And now IT can charge that per user fee to other departments. It's an operating expense. There's no upfront output for your business, anything of that nature. So I'm a huge proponent. I'm sorry?
Go ahead. Could I add something to that?
Sure.
To that conversation. So if you're sitting in the CEO suite and you're obviously looking at the CapEx expenditures for your budgeting, you know, before 2008, the Great Recession, you wanted a 3-year payback. You'd look for a 3-year payback and that kind of thing. If you had the cash flow to do it, the cash flow was better before 2008. 2008, things got real tight in most companies. And then everyone went to like a 1-year payback in CapEx. So if you could get this moved off the CapEx for cash flow purposes during that period, but anytime, it's gonna obviously enhance your cash flow, right? So you're not gonna have the one-time expenditure up front. You can move that over. You don't have to, you know, you can still want to make sure you're making a good investment in the OpEx category, but it does make it a lot more financeable, if you will. and allows you to really increase your cash flow by not having to put it all out at critical times, but anytime really. And during the COVID years or months, it becomes important. So that's a very important point. I think it'd be a good time to go to OpEx if you needed to, if you're trying to optimize cash flow. So if you're sitting
totally
there,
agree with you.
yeah.
Yep, totally agree. The other precipice moment is, hey, we need to do a hardware refresh. Whoa. Before we do a hardware refresh, let's look at what our cloud-based options are, and let's look at operationalizing this instead of capitalizing it. So absolutely agree with you. Absolutely. And it does. It frees up that cash flow.
Yeah.
So it's a really nice discussion to have, especially with your CFO, right? Because he's going to salivate. Now, your operations officer might be like, well, but we're changing how we do everything. Well, yeah, you got to modernize. You can't just stay where you were 10 years ago, or you're gonna end up sinking. So that's the same with how you pay for it, right? You modernize. Well, let's modernize how we're paying for it as well. So OpEx is. I can remember having these conversations 10 years ago, and people just looking at me like, what are you talking about, OpEx? We're not doing that. Now everybody's talking about, maybe we should OpEx this. So there's just some benefits.
I can remember Jeff Amrine tells a story about Sheridan Garrison, American Freightways, which is FedEx Freight now. They would bring these big IT budgets to the executive group, and it'd be a lot of money. And they were afraid of what Sheridan would say, and he'd say, "What happens if we don't do it?" And then he would give them a liberal budget because he wanted to have a forward, company, IT-wise, and it worked out well for him. Matter of fact, when they merged with FedEx, they thought they had better technology than FedEx did.
Okay. And they probably did.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a great analogy. I really like that. I may steal that from you.
Yeah, feel free.
All right, so let's move into our next slide, which is some best practices. I was asked, hey, what are some 10 or 11 best practices we should look at? And I kind of struggle a little bit with this because are we talking best practices from a operational standpoint? Are we talking about for specific applications? Are we talking about specific services? So I tried to generalize this as much as I could. Some of it will be specific to some software, but most of it is going to be just kind of a generalized, hey, around cloud services and IT, these are some things you need to be thinking about, right? The number one thing you can do that is the best thing that you can do is enable multi-factor authentication, enable that MFA. The number one argument I hear about MFA is, man, it makes it hard for the end users. Okay, well, no offense. Do you want to take an extra 30 seconds for the end users, or do you want to end up paying $60,000 in Bitcoin to unencrypt your data? I mean, it's a simple ROI calculation. I mean, it really is. So enable MFA, if nothing else, okay? If you're using a cloud provider, whether that is a public cloud provider, a private cloud provider, a software as a service provider, I don't care who, you need to ask them, are you SOC 2 Type 2 compliant? Okay. And that means that they have change control in place and they do it exactly the same way every single time, and they don't do it willy-nilly. Okay. Cannot stress that enough. Need to be a SOC 2 Type 2 compliant provider.
And can I ask a question there?
Sure.
I'm not raising my hand. Apologize.
No, it's okay.
Is that an actual audit that they do to assure that, or to what degree is it tires kicked?
Yeah, and Keith, if you want to jump in and help me out with this, because I don't want to butcher this too much, but the long and short of it is you have an operational procedural manual that says this is how you do things, and then you are audited every single year, and you have to prove that what you say you are doing. Is that the long and short of it, Keith?
Yeah, it's a very formal process. It involves an accounting firm that's certified to do these types of audits. There's there's maybe 200 different control points that they're checking when they do this, and it takes a lot of time to go through that. but it's a major investment for us or any company that does that. But what it does is it makes us better because we've got an outside company looking at it and saying, hey, you should be doing this a different way or by this method. So
great. That's what I thought. I remembered. Yeah. So quite extensive audit, effectively.
And all reputable cloud providers, again, whether that's public, private, whatever, software as a service, they will have a SOC 2 certificate available. They will also have bridge letters available. So do not be afraid to ask that question. There is nothing wrong with asking them, hey, I'd like to see your Type 2, your SOC 2 Type 2 audit documentation.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. The other best practice, one of the other ones is, it's really easy to get your data into these cloud providers, really easy to get in there. But ask the tough question ahead of time. Because one of the beauties of cloud is, hey, I'm using the latest, greatest today, but what happens in 12 months when there's a new latest and greatest and I want to move over there? So find out, besides, hey, how do I get my data in? Ask the tough question. Hey, how do I get my data out? And it may not be that you want to move cloud providers. It may be that you want to transfer data between a service you have with this cloud provider and either something on your own premises or at another cloud provider, and you need to exchange data. It's the same type of information. Hey, can I exchange that data? How do I do it? Right? That's really, really important. I can't tell you how many times I've seen folks make a decision to move to a software as a service-based application. It's really easy to get the data in, but then they can't. They may have, so a good example, they move their CRM to Salesforce, but they can't get that CRM data into their accounting system, or vice versa. They can't get their accounting systems data into Salesforce. So that's a tough question to ask, but you got to ask it, and they've got to be able to answer it. And if they cannot answer that question, you need to walk away from them because that's a problem.
I think the other thing that we see with a lot of our healthcare clients who are running cloud-based EMRs, electronic medical record systems, sometimes they want to extract that data and put it into kind of a business intelligence analytic engine. And the cloud provider may have said, yes, you can extract our data, but guess what? Now that you want it, we're going to charge you $20,000 to write the program to extract it. So try to understand on the front end, what are the costs related to extracting data for your usage in other applications or business analytic needs?
Yeah, that is a great point, Keith. Absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. All right. I hesitated to put this one on here, right? Because initially you're all going to look at this and just go, oh my God. But with cybersecurity, it's not a question of if you're going to get breached. It's simply a question of when. Okay. Are you going to get breached sooner or later? If you have a good cloud provider, it's going to be later, and it's continually going to be later because they stay ahead of the threats. But the questions you should be asking those providers are things like, hey, do you have cyber security insurance? Which it sounds like you guys have already done a little bit of that discussion. Ask them if they've been previously breached. And if they have, ask them, how did they respond to it? Okay. And then ask them what their incident response plan is, right? So, okay, you haven't been breached yet. Let's say you get breached tomorrow. How do you guys handle that, right? So I'll give you a good example. We are working with a municipality right now who is looking at a new service provider for their accounting system. It is a cloud-based software as a service accounting system. I kid you not, less than 60 days ago, they were breached, but they had an incident response plan. They mitigated it very, very quickly. And when we did the risk assessment of the software, it played a very big factor that we knew they already had made the assumption that at some point in time they were going to be breached, and they knew how to fix it. I cannot stress it how important that is. So, don't have this mentality that you're never going to be breached. It's just a question of when, right? Not if. So, and that includes your traditional on-premise, because if you're not updating your firewalls, if you're not hardening your web servers, if you're not staying on top of your operating system patches and your software patches, because that's the other one everybody forgets, is the software patches, you're vulnerable. All it takes is the human firewall failing and then clicking on an email link, and you're breached. So again, it's not a question of if, it's going to be a question of when. Okay. So this one is specific to a Microsoft service, and actually to two Microsoft services. So with Microsoft 365 and Office 365, we see people, well, we'll talk about that one in a minute. There are two services in those offerings. One is called SharePoint, and one is called Teams. As you know, we're using Teams today. Teams is a collaboration and communication platform, right? You can share files, you can chat, you can hold meetings, you can have, if any of you have ever used Slack, you can have channels where you have conversations about things. So it is a business collaboration platform. In reality, it is backended by SharePoint. So anytime you create a team, and this is the worst naming convention ever, folks, so I apologize for this. If you create a new team inside of Microsoft Teams, and they start saving files in there, where they're really saving them to is SharePoint. And so every time you create a new team inside of Teams, you're really creating a new SharePoint site. And you can really quickly cause data sprawl. So you want people to save data in a specific place. Well, they drop it in Teams because they just think, oh, I'm just sharing it. They don't know it's backended by SharePoint. Well, now you've got that file stored in 2 or 3 or 4 different places, right? So one of the things that we always recommend is if you have any plans to utilize SharePoint and for file storage and use Teams, out of the gate, lock down who can and who cannot create a team inside of Teams, because that will really help with your data sprawl. And that one's, we see that all the time. We'll come in to help folks with their 365, and they've implemented Teams, and they go, hey, we want to move all our file shares into SharePoint, and we go into SharePoint. They tell us it's a blank canvas. We get in there, and there's 300 team sites inside of SharePoint, and data's everywhere, and we've got to go back and scrap absolutely everything they've done and recreate it the right way. So if you guys are thinking about doing either of those things, immediately go into the Teams admin console and restrict who can and cannot create teams. Okay. For your line of business applications, right? Your accounting system, your ERP, your things, your medical, electronic medical records, your core application that your business uses to run CAD, whatever the case may be. Check with your vendor. You guys are probably coming up on a software renewal, probably within the next 18 months or so. Check with them and see if they have a software as a service version. And if they do, and it is feature parity with what you're using on premises, you should really consider moving to it. Normally, the infrastructure behind those is way more robust than you'll ever be able to build inside your own premise. And it's way more secure than you're able to do it, because they're having to secure all of their customers' data. And usually they are industry specific, so they know the requirements for your industry that you have to have. So I highly recommend considering moving to it. Additionally, it makes deployment of workstations and things of that nature, troubleshooting problems, go much, much faster, because if it's a web-based application and you're troubleshooting a PC or something of that nature, instead of taking 4.5 hours to try to troubleshoot it, you can take 45 minutes, reload the PC, and your problem's solved. Okay. So think about moving to that if you can. The next one is automate, automate, automate. And what I mean by that is look around your business and look at the mundane tasks that you do every single day, that you have to do every single day, and see if you can automate those. And if you can, automate them. There are tons and tons of tools with software as a service, with infrastructure as a service, to allow you to automate those mundane processes. So that'll give you some clock cycles back, if you will. The next one is the hardest one, and I struggled with whether I should put this in there or not, but I decided I needed to. Make a cloud first commitment. And what does that mean? Well, a cloud first commitment means that all of your applications and data will move to the cloud unless there's a compelling reason that they must stay on premise. Now, again, cloud means lots of things. Infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, private cloud, public cloud. It doesn't necessarily mean you're moving it all to software as a service, right? But you're moving it into a cloud footprint. With the cloud first strategy, you're simply keeping your application and data teams with one foot on first base while they're trying to steal second base, right? So they're always able to move to that next thing that they need to move to. So, be thinking about that and really commit to that. There are times when your line of business application, especially with the legacy, will not have a software as a service. It won't run well in a private or a public cloud. It really got to run on dedicated hardware. In that case, you keep it on-prem, but you at least evaluate that and make sure you can't move to that cloud-based solution. Don't fall into the best of breed trap. And what I mean by this is, and I'm going to use Microsoft 365 as an example. Microsoft 365 is an umbrella of services, somewhere in the neighborhood of about 35 services. Most people sign up for it for one of two things. Exchange Online, where they get their email, or the suite of Office applications, and that's it. Hey, guess what? There's 28 other applications that you are paying for that will probably fill some gaps or do the same thing as a piece of software that you're already paying for. Good example is Teams. How many of you are paying for Zoom? How many of you are paying for GoToMeeting? How many of you are paying for WebEx? Guess what? Teams has conferencing for free, $0. Get rid of Zoom, get rid of WebEx, and use Teams. Save your company some money. Keith will attest to this. We went through this change about 3 years ago. And for what we were paying to cover 17 or 18 users of GoToMeeting, we were able to cover every single one of our employees internally, not just with the capability to do Teams meetings, because that's free, but actually assign them a dial-in phone number. So if somebody needed to just pick up a phone and call into a meeting, they couldn't do it because they didn't have a web browser, they could do it. And we did it for less than a quarter of the cost that we're paying for GoToMeeting for 17 people. It's huge savings, folks, right? So those same type of things, be thinking about that, right? Can I, use Teams for collaboration? Can I use SharePoint to store my files? Can I use Groove to store my videos? Those kind of things instead of paying a third-party service. So don't fall into that best of breed trap of, I have to have this application. It has 37,000 features in it, but I'm only using 2. Try to use those other 30,000 features before you go and buy another piece of software. Okay. Make sure logging is configured. You want to make sure you can log and you have those logs so you can find out exactly what happened and you can roll back if you need to. And then the final one is the biggest one. There's a common misconception that just because I'm in the cloud, they back up my data. That's not true. That is not true in any way, shape, or form. You need to be backing up your data. That could be that you're using a third-party backup service. Adafio offers a third-party backup service. We go out and back up your data for you. But get a company that's going to back up your data, okay? Because if that cloud service goes away tomorrow or it crashes and you need to get that data out of there, there's no other way to do it if you don't have a backup. I always jokingly say, you wouldn't not back up your on-premises servers. Why would you not back up your cloud data? Back it up. Okay. And then finally, hey, guess what? Question. We've had some good ones during the presentation. I know we're getting close to time. I think we have 8 minutes left. So if you guys have any other questions around this, and I'm happy to try to answer them.
Okay. Questions? That's well done, Will. I really got a lot out of it myself. Appreciate your best practices. We talked about that before this meeting, and I know that's challenging for you to do. And what we might do, Keith, is ask for that slide, maybe with a disclaimer at the bottom that, things could change and we reserve the right, something like that. If we were going to use that further, I think, for our fleshing out our pillars, if you will, that's okay. Or we could just make it ours based on your all's best, we'll get the right legal thing in there. But questions for anybody? Ask them a hard one, please. Is there a chat question or anything? Everybody? No?
Amy's got a question. Go ahead, Amy. What do you got? You'll have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Good morning. Good to hear your voice. Yeah.
I just was wondering, as you grow, as companies grow and things change with your company, and you usually don't start off with somebody with IT, you may be using Google Mail or just 365. How do you know it? We always, when I was running a company, were challenged by how to protect things. And what would you say is the best way to stay on top of it as an entrepreneur? Because what you don't know is really what usually hurts you. And usually you start off as a one-man team. So what could you suggest that as an entrepreneur, how you stay on top of your IT needs and your security?
So I think the biggest thing that you can do, and Keith, I want you to weigh in on this with me as well. From my perspective, especially as an entrepreneur, because cloud, both public and private and software as a service, changes so rapidly, I think you really have to find someone you trust that is good with IT to be nothing more than an advisor, than just say, hey, maybe you've outgrown G Suite, or maybe you should, instead of running QuickBooks on your server on premises, maybe you should be looking at QuickBooks online. Those type of questions to help guide you. Jeremy last time really pointed out a really good suggestion. If you have someone in your organization who's talking about it, you probably ought to listen to them, because that means they're probably pretty up on it and have already started paying attention to it. Additionally, there's companies like us who will do nothing but come in and help you understand on whatever interval you want, whether it's one time or whether it's once a quarter or once every 6 months. We're happy to come in and just have those discussions with you. Look at how your business process works, the software you're using, and help you understand if that's something that might be able to be commoditized and turned into more of a cloud-based solution. Keith, did I miss anything there? Do you have anything else to add to that?
No, I think you covered that well. I might add just a little bit. I think there's two changes or transitions that have happened in the IT industry over the past, 5 to 10 years, and one of them is the level of complexity, and certainly this other is this move to the cloud. So, and the third, I guess, would be security. Just that there's so many bad actors trying to get into and mess you up and steal from you. They're just thieves. So because of those three factors, I think if you may have someone on your team or in your company that can help you navigate through that, but don't be afraid to get help from other companies like us or other companies who are specialists in this space. I think those factors of complexity, the cloud change, and security are reasons to, companies like Edafio are in business, because we can help.
Amy's former company had some IT, some patents, and some patents and proprietary stuff that I'm sure she always worried about. And I bet that would be hard to make those decisions. So you're saying that you'll do the free assessment, but a free consultation, but you might even be able to be hired to look at all this, and even if we didn't transfer to you or something.
Yeah, either us or someone else for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that helps me a lot, because I think one of my suggestions would be to anybody would be maybe put that as part of their checklist when you're going through your budget. to make sure what can we do better next year on IT, because I did see it change over time. And we use software people, but I think as it changed, some of our software people didn't stay on top of it. So it was a constant issue. And not knowing anything about it myself, it's always good to have really good people like yourself. And it should be something you ask yourself annually, what you can do better.
Well put. Perfectly put, I think. Thank you, Amy, for that input. Spoken as a CEO, high-performing CEO of a tech venture, tech-oriented.
Melissa, got a question? What you got, Melissa?
Well, speaking with what Amy had just suggested, in the next month on our final series, it really does uncover when you might want to outsource, just key factors, and Mark Hodges, our VP of Sales and Client Management, will be able to provide a little bit more clarity to what you're asking, Amy. So in case you wanted to join that call, that might be something, when to outsource, when to not, questions to ask, things to just be a little bit more of an advocate for your company.
Yeah, that's a great segue to the next month's pillar workshop on technology. Thank you. I was going to ask you to do that, Melissa. Thanks. Good deal. We appreciate you all, Edafio. You've been great. Any other questions? With that, let's go eat lunch, everybody. Keith, thank you so much. Will, thank you. Melissa, thank you. We'll put this online, and we'll work on those best practices. That's great that you took a stab at that. Appreciate you all.
Thank you, Tim.
Meeting adjourned, I guess.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, thank you. Hope it's good for you.
Thanks, everybody.